All right, what's up everybody? LandanWithLMR.com. We got keeping comp out today. This is the 2004 Mustang GT project car that we've had for a little while now at the time of this video, and it's done a complete 180 since we acquired it, I'd say probably early 2020. And it's kind of the maiden voyage, other than the initial test drive, for the Coyote swap. This is a Gen 2 Coyote engine out of a Mustang GT. We have a complete start to finish video on the high points of what we did to get this in the car. Definitely check that one out. We'll leave a link to it down in the video description. But what you're about to watch in this video, this is the ride and drive, or ride along, whatever you want to call it. Pick some bullet points, and we're just going to have a nice little yap or chit-chat sesh as we scoot the car through the good old Texas countryside. And along with those talking points, y'all be sure to comment below what you think. We like reading through all those comments. We like chit-chatting with all of you because I think we all, you know, kind of have our own little take on stuff like this. So y'all sit back, relax, and enjoy the video. All right, everybody. Out here in rural Texas, a lot of, yeah boy, a lot of road, that's for sure. But taking a ride and keeping comp today. I'm gonna talk about kind of a quick backstory of the car, roll into kind of why we chose the Coyote, maybe touch on some points of what was the most difficult part of it. Of course, that's subjective due to knowledge and experience. And then I think we'll kind of rabbit hole just a little bit of where we see the car in the future. But the quick backstory on this, if you haven't watched it, we did a 8-episode series covering this entire car, picking it up, taking it all apart, painting it, and then putting it all back together. Kind of where this car started is probably 2011 timeframe, give or take. Tyler Rodriguez, who was an employee of LMR at the time, still an LMR employee, purchased this car and kind of did everything he wanted to it in the given time frame of his ownership. Enthusiast-minded stuff that he liked, and then within that time, you know, we wanted to break out and start a family, and that's what he did, and he parted ways with the car. Well, fast forward a few years after that, the car popped up locally at a car lot, random car lot, and we knew it was the car. I mean, just because there's, at least around Waco, there wasn't very many 2004 competition orange Mustang GTs, and Tyler kind of kept in touch all along the way of the people that bought the car, because, you know, he planted the seed of, hey, if you get rid of it, let me buy the dang thing back. Well, anyways, we went and looked at the car, and it was in fairly rough shape. It needed some help. It needed to get back to its former glory. And, you know, kind of what crossed our mind was a couple things. One, sentimental value of Tyler owning the car. Two, we somewhat knew the history of it from Tyler's ownership. Three, it was a 2004 competition orange GT, which you don't really see a lot of. And then kind of the fourth thing was, it was probably time to take a new edge apart and put one back together and do kind of a mild, medium-ish restoration. And I know those words are very, very subjective. So while the car kind of sat around the shop, allowed us time to drive it and experience it, all along the way, you know, we were kind of at the virtual drawing board of, you know, what's the next step? You know, does it need an engine? Does it need suspension? And we landed on engine. We kind of dreamed up a few scenarios, as everybody does. You know, showed interest in kind of a 2-valve build, bottom end, some heads, maybe boost. I mean, let's be honest. To make a 2-valve fast, you got to put boost on it. If not, you're going to nickel and dime yourself to death. But given the state of where we were at with the cars and kind of how we operate from the business side of things, Coyote just made the most sense. We've always been actively pursuing and curating solutions for Coyote swap parts for both Fox body and SN95 New Edge. But if you take these cars, specifically 96 to 2004, they're the car that takes the least amount of work to put a Coyote in, especially a 2-valve or 4-valve car, due to those already having the 8.8 rear ends, K-member, you know, just to name a few. So with that thought, we knew we wanted a Coyote, and after scrolling around and thumbing around, ended up landing on a Gen 2 engine out of a Mustang GT with around 30, 40-ish thousand miles. We purchased it out of state, sight unseen, and then And when we got it back, unfortunately for us, you know, we kind of had to do a little bit more work to get the engine ready to go in the car than what we anticipated. But regardless, if you're buying something out of state like that, you know, it's kind of this unspoken trust of, man, I hope I'm getting something good judging by the pictures. But that's the reason why we went Coyote, due to the relative ease of getting it into a 96 to 04 car, and especially now with the Coyote swap shorty headers, you know, we were able to retain the factory K-member. We were able to reuse the mid-pipe, even though we didn't, just because ours was kind of hodgepodged and all janked up. But we could have reused it if we wanted to. And then we went with the Coyote swap oil pan and the power by the hour accessory drive. All the hydro boost stuff hooked up. All of that was carryover. And for any of the extra details, we've got the hour-long video of start to finish of swapping this car, and we kind of touch points all along the way of those key moments of installing it. As far as the overall cost goes, I think that's the golden question, if you will. How much does it cost? Well, it's going to vary from swap to swap. You know, something like this, you can easily go add up the parts in the cart of what we used, with the only exception being an engine. And if you go the route of maybe an F-150 Coyote, those can naturally be had a little bit cheaper than the Mustang versions, just due to them making a little less power, maybe not as sought after, if you will, by most folks. So, you know, if you wanted to kind of pinch a few pennies there, you could go the route of an F-150. So really all you would have to do, thumb through that video, add up the parts that we used, put them in the cart, and then go find an engine, and then add those two numbers together, and that's pretty much the cost of doing a Coyote swap. And that's if you're doing it yourself to save on labor. You know, if you're gonna have a shop do it, well, you gotta factor that in as well. Kind of to us, in the grand scheme of all this, the Coyote was the perfect swap for the car. I mean, it makes just shy of 390 horsepower, which is plenty for what we're using the car for. And, you know, we weren't necessarily chasing the power with this swap. The 2-valve was tired. It was puffing oil, you know. It had some compression issues. It had valve seal issues. It still made decent power, 242-ish horsepower, something like that. I can't remember the torque, but made decent power for a, you know, sorted high mileage 2-valve. It was just tired. And again, going back to the why we went Coyote, we just didn't want to mess with the 2-valve stuff and just went straight to business, if you will. I think we can sit all day and discuss bullet points, but I think one that kind of pops in my head of what was the most difficult part of the swap, that's always going to be subjective. I think we all default to wiring, just due to the maybe the uncharted territory you can find yourself. Wiring is, to me, the easier part. You know, it's very A to B, almost like the mechanical stuff. Yes, I think it takes a little more time to study, measure twice, cut once type of thought, but you could have that theory on anything you do. But in my head, you know, if I'm doing this out in my driveway or if I'm doing this in my garage, I think the more difficult part of the swap is going to be lugging around all the heavy stuff. You know, getting the engine out, getting the engine in, doing a bunch of mock-up stuff, taking the parts off, putting them back on, taking them off, putting them back on. To me, that's, I mean, I wouldn't even necessarily call that difficult, but I guess if we were to use that word, to me, that would be the more difficult part of the swap. All right, so kind of to put you in the driver's seat, it drives like a 2004 Mustang GT. We hadn't addressed the suspension yet. I'll touch base on that here in just a moment. But you know, you don't recognize it until you hit the go fast pedal. It has an extra 143 horsepower and 88 pound-feet of torque, which for us and the goal we were chasing with the car is fantastic. We couldn't be happier. This is on a Ford performance calibration. We used the correct size MAF housing, so we didn't have to go get a custom tuner or anything like that. And the car runs strong and makes really good power with that Ford performance calibration. And the reason why we did that is there really wasn't much info out there as to kind of how much power you could expect from the Ford performance calibration and how does it drive. Oh, it's hot roddy, I can say that. But gosh dang, it drives just like a new age car. I mean, I know that's so silly to say, but It does. I mean, it kind of puts me back in the seat of my old 99 GT. Boy, I thought I was cool, man. 2-valve. Had just enough power to make you feel like you knew what you were doing. And then now something like this, you're like, ah, dang. All right, everybody, back in the car. Quick stop for lunch here to the Waco area. We're kind of in our local Twisties. Can't get too fast, but a good kind of talking point of what's next. But kind of where we see the car in the future. You know, you just never know. We're car people, right? We say we're done, but we're not done. And I don't know what the future holds for the car in terms of anything extra. But I can tell you this. We do need to address the suspension. It has some aging components on it. It feels real, it's bumpy. Kind of rides like a steel-wheeled wagon. I don't know what a steel-wheeled wagon feels like, but it just sounded cool to say. And probably where we'll see ourselves with suspension, it'd be like everything else we do. OEM plus enthusiast-minded mods. So we'll probably land on SV lowering springs, Bilstein shocks and struts, the LMR factory style upper control arms. And then for the lower control arm, I could see us going the route of J&M or either Maximum Motorsports. That'd pretty much set the car up for where we want it to be, and we can just enjoy it. It's been a long journey. It's crazy to think that at the time of this video versus when we bought the car back, you know, 5 years have passed, and it's gone by so quick. And you know, my parents always told me that the older you get, the faster it goes. And I always told them y'all didn't know what y'all were talking about. Well, they knew what they were talking about. But I think we're happy with keeping comp. I think everybody around the building's happy. You know, it was a good group effort. I think it just goes back to the testament of the kind of people we are. We're all very like-minded, but all very different in our own ways. And you know, on stuff like this, we always come together, use our resources where they're valued most. And I think that's why these cars that we do and all the stuff you see frontward facing, I mean, it's just, the proof is in the pudding, as they say. I mean, we're car people just like all of you, and you know, we're chasing and curating as many solutions and problem-solving components and pieces as we can. All right, well, I think we've come to the end, folks. Like I said, some good talking points. Like any video, we can sit here and rattle all day, but I think that leaves the forum open for all of you to hop in the comments and talk with us. You know, let us know what's on your mind. What do you think of the build? What do you think of this video? And just anything in between. So it's hot, even though it's March in Texas. I think it's 90 degrees outside. And unfortunately, we're working on the ABS module with this car, and we don't have any AC. So how about that? Like I said, we're never finished, right? But anyways, that's it, folks. If y'all find value in what we do, please consider liking the video, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and then till we see you in the next one, for all things keeping comp and Coyote swap, keep it right here with the Real Enthusiasts, LMR.com.